Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton, and along with me is, well, nobody right now, actually, because of scheduling conflicts. Bethany and I didn't get a chance to do an opening. So she will be with us for the main portion, which is obviously the interview. So really, without further ado, let's get to that interview. So myself, along with our fun-sized fitness fanatic, Bethany McChesney, and our incredible guest, Ryan Kent. All right, so we'll start from here. So if you don't know by now, this is Ryan Kent. Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Let's start it with just a little bit of background, then we'll jump to what's happened recently. Beth, you want to start?
Yeah, so Ryan, it's my understanding that you started competitive running at a very young age. And I find this really intriguing because I grew up in the track and field world as well. And in my club in particular, they didn't allow anyone under the age of 11. And my coach didn't recommend training anybody under the age of 14. So I started when I was 14. So basically he didn't really want people starting too young. And he just said for worries about burnout and just kids taking it to a sport that should be more of a discipline too seriously too young. So I'm just curious then how you ended up in the competitive running scene at such a young age.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus probably amongst like most people. But I came from probably a very small percentage of families where like my dad was a very competitive athlete. So like, he was into bodybuilding like in the 70s and 80s when it was like in its heyday, but he was also into like road running, like doing 5Ks and 10Ks and half marathons and marathons. So that's what he did. And like when I became old enough, which really wasn't that old, but when I was like 4 years old, he pretty much was like, hey, like, I'm going to do this 5K, but there's also like a 1 mile fun run that like I want you to do. So that's kind of how it started. I went and did like a 1 mile fun run when I was 4, when my dad did like the 5K with the grown-ups. And yeah, I mean, one thing led to another. The next race I did was like a 5K. And as I remember it, my dad said that like, I want to run with the adults. Like my dad always tells me that story that like I asked him, I was like, I want to run with the big boys or something like that. So he let me do it. And yeah, next thing you know, like I'm doing these like crazy endurance races as a kid. And even when I was like 6 or 7, my dad was taking me up to the high school. And like I was running with the high school that I would be attending like later in life. He knew the coach, and whenever they would have like cross country practice and stuff in the mornings, I would go and run with the cross country kids. And they all thought like I was nuts and like my dad was crazy for like making me do this stuff. But, I didn't know any differently because I grew up around it, So, yeah, that's pretty much how it all started.
I just think back to when I was that age. Sorry, I just think back to when I was that age. And for me, I was like, just trying to figure out how to eat.
Yeah.
You must have been
I did everything too. I mean, I played Pee Wee football, the little Mighty Mites, soccer. I mean, there was a stretch when I was 5, 6, 7 years old when I would do in the morning, I'd go and run like a 5K run in the morning. Then I'd go to my football game, and then I'd go to a soccer game. And it was just like this all day, just like affair. And like that's all I really knew was just like sports and being active, and I didn't know any differently.
Did you ever hit a point then where you remember being burnt out?
I don't remember. I mean, I definitely went through stretches where I plateaued and stuff, but I don't know that my enjoyment like went away for it. I think it was just when I got older and like my friends were doing other things. Like I sort of it was that tug of war kind of thing where like, okay, like I know I'm good at running, but my friends are playing basketball or tennis or whatever the sport was. And I kind of wanted to go be with my friends, but I knew that I was good at running. So I obviously stuck with that. But that was really the extent of it. Like it wasn't I never didn't like doing it. It was just when I hit those teenage years, I just felt like I wanted to be with my friends more than like chasing after like being some sort of like child prodigy or something like that, you know.
So you still have a record, right?
I do. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look it up somehow.
I'm just gonna pretend like you are.
Yeah, yeah. I think I hold like the the record for 8-year-old boys for an 8 kilometer road race, which was 32 minutes, I think, which is like a 6:20 something per mile or something like that for an 8 kilometer run. I had a few other ones. I had like a 5K, 10K, and like half marathon, but dude, kids these days are like super, super fast. And most of my records that I set when I was a kid running have been broken. But I think that's the one that still stands is the 8K.
Do you think now that it's more common now? Like, because you say kids today, so do you think it's more common now? Kids being raised, kind of, I don't want to say raised, but introduced
Yeah,
to
man.
competitive sports the way you were that early?
Absolutely.
You blame it on
Absolutely.
Tiger Woods?
I don't know what did Tiger Woods do?
His dad, same thing. You know, when he was like 3 years old,
Oh,
here's the
okay.
golf club, get going.
Okay. No, I mean, I just see on social media all the time, like these 8-year-old kids running like a 54-second, like 400 meter or something like that. Um, I just see it all the time on Instagram or Facebook. Like something will pop up where some super young kid just ran like a 4:30 mile. He's like 11 years old or something like that. So yeah, I think it's definitely more common like these days for kids to be into it at an early age. I think I wouldn't say you have to, but if you can get a jump start on the game, it doesn't hurt. As long as you play it smart, you know.
And I'll ask the both of you this: do you think that'll lead to more burnout for more kids and like more kids just ditching sport earlier?
I think it could, but like I think it more depends on just the individual's like mental makeup more than just like them being introduced and being pushed at such a young age. Like I'm just a very driven person in general, and I was probably going to stick with it even if I was felt like I was running my head into like a brick wall. Like I was just that's just the type of person I am. Like I don't know, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is it's so true. The kid itself really determine that. Like I've been a trainer for a long time too, and I train kids, and I'll have parents that come to me because they want their kid to make X, Y, and Z team. And when it's so parent driven, I find those kids end up, a few years down the road, they're not playing sports at all. And then I have kids who come to me who the kid wants to be there and they love what they do. And then then they're the ones that I see years down the road making the college teams and stuff like that. So I think you're right. I think so much of it comes down to what's in the kid themselves and what they want and if they're happy doing it.
My sister is like the perfect example. I've got two younger twin sisters that are like 4 or 5 years younger than me. One of them, Lindsay, she was actually a way better runner than I was growing up. Like we traveled around the country, doing track meets and races and all this kind of stuff. And she, like, I was really good, but she was next level. I mean, the sky was the limit. I mean, she was like 8 years old running like 19-minute 5Ks. And she was the type of person where like, I think she enjoyed it, but she hit that level where I got when I was in high school, where I wanted to be with my friends. And she went in that direction. Like she got into cheerleading. She got on like a gymnastics team, like outside of school. And she ended up never running past like 9th or 10th grade. But like up until that point, like, I mean, the sky was the limit for what she wanted to be, but it just wasn't for her.
So you went from that, and I don't know if you realize this, Ryan, but you're not built like your average runner. So at some point,
I just finished a workout like 15 minutes before we hopped on this thing, so I'm still kind of trying to cool down.
So what point
But
did you
yeah,
at
you're
what point
right.
did you hit the gym? What point did you start to say, hey, you know what, I love running, but I gotta hit the gym too?
I mean, I think it started in high school, in gym class. Like I was always like I liked going into the weight room and doing like, bench press and curls and pull ups and just trying to beat the other kids and all that stuff. Um, but I think I started taking it pretty seriously in my like early 20s. I took a little break from running and just really kind of got into the lifting scene, which also comes from my dad, like bodybuilding and arm wrestling. So I kind of went in that direction for a little while. And I don't know, like I liked it, but I also had like a passion for running still. So like I wasn't really training for anything in my like early to mid 20s. I was just kind of like working out a lot and I, go the standard like bodybuilding program, like Mondays chest, Tuesdays biceps, Wednesdays shoulders and tries. Um, but like I would do that and then I'd go for like an 8 mile run or go to the track and do some 400. So it was like this complete contrasting styles of fitness where like I'm trying to get really strong, but then I go to the track and run some 400. And then obviously later down the line, I fell into a sport called Spartan race, which who knew it, but I was kind of training for it well before I actually kind of popped on the scene there.
So what was your first race? Because obviously we get into Spartan, and the big thing actually, I mean, for your first race and everything, but I want to talk about your stadium series stuff too, because I think that severely gets overshadowed. The whole stadium series races get, they stay in the shadow of the national series because maybe you don't have the money and the interest, but yeah, screw the first race. So you do the stadium series, and as far as I'm wrong, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You've never been beaten in the stadium series?
No, I haven't. I haven't beat. It's just been a while.
Okay.
Just quick story. My first Spartan race, I did get my ass kicked in
Good.
my first Spartan race, but I came back. I came back at my second race and completely dominated. And next thing you knew, I was like on the pro team, like after my second race, which doesn't happen too often. But yeah, I've been beaten before in a stadium race, but not since I moved to Colorado and have this, they call it the mini incline. If you're familiar with Colorado Springs, it's got like the Manitou incline, which is like that infamous stairway that climbs like 2,000 vertical feet in less than a mile or something like that. But here in Castle Rock, where I live, we have like a miniature version of it where it's just shy of like 200 vertical feet. I think it's like 180 vertical feet. And it's 200 steps in like a tenth of a mile. So it's like this super steep, short hill. And ever since I've lived here, I haven't lost a stadium race because I just have this awesome training tool in my backyard that not many people have. I mean, you could go to your local high school and climb some bleachers and stuff, but it's not going to compare to this place. So yeah, I've kind of got that little trick up my sleeve. But I also think that the stadium races are, if I had to pick a style of race that I enjoy the most, it would 100% be the stadium races. And if I probably had to pick a race that suits me the best, it's probably stadium races. Because I like climbing, but I don't like a long, grind up a big bare ski slope. And I like functional fitness, and I also like flat running. So it just kind of has all the things that I like and that I'm good at.
Do you think Spartan's going to put more emphasis on that, say, in 2022? Like we keep hearing, I mean, they had the series before. We keep hearing that they're going to focus on it. Do you actually think they'll back it up and jump onto it? Or do you think they're going to get sidetracked and keep with the national series and then build Spartan Cross, which is probably another thing you'd be very well suited for. But do you think they'll actually back it up a bit? Throw some money at it?
I don't know. I really don't. Because again, they talked about a world championship stadium series or stadium race in the past, and it just never came to fruition. And just at this point in time with where we're at in the world, it's really hard to like really expect anything from anyone, because you just never know what's going to happen. So I'm not like counting on it happening, but it would be really, really cool if it did. And I think they're kind of missing something. Like they're missing an opportunity to really probably make some money and grow the sport in a different way, because stadiums are in one arena, you know, like you can really set it up and film it and make it a TV production. I think it's just more exciting than what we see out on, you know, a typical Spartan course. I mean, that's cool and all, but a lot of the times they head off in the woods and you don't see them for, you know, 20 to 30 minutes. But in a stadium race, I mean, you could have, you know, cameras all over the place. So I don't know what the reasoning is behind it. I hope it sticks around because, like I said, I enjoy that format. But I'm not counting on anything happening, if I had to be honest.
So wait, you're saying you're not going to rely on Spartan to do the right thing? I am stunned.
Yeah. I mean, dude, yeah. I've dealt with Spartan for 7 years now, man. I mean, I love them. They're a great company, but sometimes they're difficult to work with. I mean, yeah. I'll just keep my mouth shut.
No, it's cool. It's good. So, and actually, I guess there was a little bit you could go back to if you talk about dealing with Spartan and we remember Deka Fit getting launched. You, Corinna, were the poster boy, poster girl for that. And then obviously, and this one, not through Spartan's fault, you know, COVID, everything went to hell. But your guys' contracts obviously got kibosh.
Yeah.
And I've heard before, maybe there was some ill will there or whatever, but now, as of recently, you jumping back on, seeming to attack some Deka stuff. Is that water under the bridge now? And let's just say the opportunity arose again to do a partnership with that. Is that something you'd ever be open to again? Or now you're like, I'm my own man, I'm going to do my own thing, screw contracts with that kind of stuff?
I would say if the partnership felt right and like everything like was equal on both sides, I would consider it. But it's nice now having my full-time job where I don't have to rely on that, and I'm able to say no to things, which I haven't really been able to do in the past. I'd accept something for less money because I didn't have any other option, you know, and now I'm able to say no to things. I would say it is water under the bridge. I mean, Jared and Nancy, I mean, I'm so close with those guys. I was just very, it happened at a very bad time for everybody, because I had a contract signed that was worth a good amount of money for a whole year. And I knew that was coming down the pipeline. And my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, we moved into like a house because I knew that I had this income coming in, and just kind of spent some money in some places. And then the rug got pulled out from underneath me. And I mean, it really wasn't anyone's fault. But it was bad timing. And I was pretty upset about it. And I probably was for a good while. And it forced me to kind of take charge of my own life and just put things in my hand, because I was like, look, I can't really count on anyone other than myself. So I went out and I got a job for the first time in like 6 years, because I'd been training full time up until that point. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to go do this. And that's what I went and did. And like looking back on it, it's probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because now I've kind of set myself up for something when I'm done racing. I've got health insurance now, which I didn't have before. Yeah, just so many good things have come from me kind of splitting off and doing this on the side. Well, it's not really training, and racing is actually on the side now. So yeah, man, it's water under the bridge, and dude, shit happens. in life, and you just kind of got to roll with the punches.
So you quite literally got a haircut and got a real job.
Yep.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I had to throw in the bad dad joke. I apologize. And Beth and I were talking just before you came on about this. And we both have kids. And you find that when we had kids, it sharpened our focus on how to be more efficient with our time. Now, I was a fat slob, so it didn't really matter about training and stuff like that. But for you, having the kid now and being, having to do dad duties, and yes, people, he's won stuff and is a father. I wanted to play the father card. Nobody plays the dad card. It's our turn. Have you found that sharpened time and made your training more efficient, made you make better use of your time?
Yes, 100%. Because before it was like, all right, well, I stayed up late tonight. I'll sleep. I'll just wake up whenever. I'll get my first workout done around noon. Then I'll come home, make some food, maybe take a nap. Then I'll, if I'm feeling it, I'll go do my workout. If not, I'll wait a couple more hours. That kind of thing, where I was just kind of, if I wasn't feeling it, I'd put it off until like I absolutely had to do it. And now with work and being a dad, I basically have to do everything in the morning when everyone's still asleep. So I've got from about 5 in the morning until 7:30 to get everything I need to get done for the day. Because then I'm off to work, and then when I come home, my wife's like, I've been with the baby all day. Here you go. So it's forced me to kind of, just put my attention all to that time in the morning, knowing like if I want to get it done, it has to get done during that time. And if not, then it's just not going to get done. And I'm not the type of person who just like skip something. So it gets done. And I've always kind of separated, or I would take a break normally. Like if I had to do a 60-minute run and then like some strength work, I would take a couple hours break in between the two. But now it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to go do this run or whatever. And then I'm going to come back and I have to do strength like immediately afterwards, which isn't something I've always done in the past, but I'm starting to feel like there's benefit to that, just because it's more, I think, specific maybe to training and racing, just because you're adding that little extra fatigue factor to it, so yeah.
Do you do all your training separately? You said you do your run, then you'll do strength training, or do you combine them and do like, like I said, for lack of a better word, for hybrid training where you do it together, better compromised running? Do you do it that way, or do you just keep them separate?
Both. There are some days where, it's just strictly running. But then there's days where I like definitely combine the two. I would say twice a week, maybe. Sometimes 3, and usually one's pretty easy, like easy effort. I'm doing all the stuff that I need to do, but I'm keeping the intensity low. And then another one might be moderate. And then there's always like one hard, like hybrid day, which is usually on Sunday because that's like my day off from work. But they're not like all intensity days. And I think that's one thing I've had to kind of learn in the last like year or two. It's just like, I don't need to feel like I need to go super hard on this type of training like all the time. Treat it just like you would like a running program. You're not going to go and hammer every single run. You're not going to get better that way. You might get better like in the short term, but it's not like a sustainable thing. And I think the same goes with your hybrid training. Like you can still go do sled pushes and you can do wall balls and farmer's carry. Like you can do all that stuff at lower intensities. And that's kind of what I've implemented into my training, and I feel like it's definitely paying off.
So all the training you've done in the past and everything has kind of brought you up to the point where we are now, when there actually finally is, what we're calling hybrid racing. And, you brought yourself into the mold without knowing it. You prepared yourself, and then they made a sport for you. So just recently, and I guess it was maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago on your Instagram, all of a sudden it's like, in 5 days, I'm going to go for, every Deka record there is. And I was like, oh, okay, that was kind of out of nowhere because I didn't know you were going to do that, any of the deck at all. And we started with the Deka Strong. So, I mean, why don't you just give us a bit of the buildup and we'll go through how it went for you?
Well, I guess it started with I had requested off this weekend of the Deka Strong a while back at work for because it was originally supposed to be Hyrox Dallas, I think. So that's kind of what I'd been prepping for, and then that got postponed. So I was like, all right, I've got this weekend off. What can I do? So I like went through all the races coming up and saw that like there was a Deka Strong like right near where my parents live in North Carolina. I'm like, oh cool, like I can go do this thing and see my parents at the same time. And then it kind of manifested into this like, well, there's a Deka Mile like a month after that in Colorado. And then there's like a Deka Fit shortly after that. I'm like, maybe I could like knock out all the records in the next like month and a half. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And it was just like super exciting, something really fun to like chase after and keep me motivated to train hard. Because I think I am kind of one of those people that need kind of something, at least it doesn't need to be like super short term, but I need to know something's coming up like in the next month or two to kind of keep me excited. And that was just like a super fun challenge that I kind of set out for myself.
I think it would almost be the equivalent of the runners growing after the FKTs.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Yeah.
So you're there, and we watched the live stream. It was a great setup and a great job by Yancey and Jack on the commentary and videoing it. And was that your idea to stream it, or?
Well, so I was originally gonna just go live on my Instagram, and I had my buddy coming up from Virginia who was also gonna do it, and I asked him if he would film it for me on my Instagram. And then like 2 days before, I just hit up Matt B. Davis and was like, hey, like, what's your interest in doing this? Like, I know it's short notice. If you don't want to do it, like, totally fine, but let me know. And he was like, dude, I would love to. And he was like, I'll do it with Yancey. And then he realized he actually his wife had like a bodybuilding competition the same day. So he was like, all right, so like Yancey can do it, like, but I'm not going to be able to, tag team it with him. And then Jack got on board with it. And yeah, like one thing kind of led to another. And I was actually pretty like, I was stoked with kind of how it turned out. Like it was good filming. It was good chatting. They had a lot of content really to talk about, especially with like, I gave them the splits that I wanted to be at before the event. That way they knew if like I was ahead of pace or behind pace. So I think, yeah, for like a real quick, short, like put together thing, it turned out really well.
I think that just goes to show as well how much the event is suited towards streaming and, a live stream.
Right, and I don't know why like they don't do it like more often, like they want this thing to grow, and that's ultimately, kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grow this thing, and I'm trying to add credibility to like the athlete side that, that way, like, if anyone who comes in and they see these times that are set, they're going to know that like it's legit. So like, I don't know, like I'm trying to help progress this thing, and it doesn't really seem to be that everyone else is kind of feeling the same way. So
I said to Yancey I think it was just last week I was chatting with him, and I told him, I said, personally, I think that the Deka Mile to me is the most exciting one. I think it's the one that leads itself best to an event being streamed. I think the Deka Fit just goes on a little bit too long with the running, and the area is a little too big. But if you have a situation where you can set up 6 guys, I mean, if you think back to the Hyrox Elite 12, where they had like 6 stations set up, 6 guys or 6 girls doing the Deka Mile, just like that, side by side, lead to an awesome event, very easy to put on. You're not going to deal with Wi-Fi issues. You're not going to deal with running through the woods. You're going to like throw a little bit of money at it, just a little. It doesn't need a lot,
I agree.
get somebody like a Megita and a Jack to do a commentary. So you have a good experienced guy doing play-by-play and a guy with great stats who can fire off all your splits and stuff. Anyway, personal thing.
I agree. I agree.
Excuse me. So anyway, let's go through your actual attempt. So
sure.
You went out. We saw you tested everything. Everything got set out. The one thing we didn't see you test was the lunge setup.
Yeah. So that was so stupid because I've never done it the way that I did it, and I think I just saw the person that went before me do it that way, and I immediately just kind of fell into that. I've always stood on the mat like long ways. That way, that problem, never would have happened. But for whatever reason, I did it the way that I did it. And I doubled the mat too, just to kind of give myself a little extra cushion on my knees. So I could really kind of like bounce off the ground really hard and try to do them quicker. And yeah, it was just a disaster. I mean, I was only like 6 or 7 lunges in, and I could feel it. I felt it kind of, I kicked it and I was like, oh no, don't do that again. And then like 2 lunges after that, I'm basically tripping over the mat. And then I'm left to do it on like the hard surface ground like the rest of the time. So yeah, it was just like not a great start to it. And that's all I kept thinking about for.
Well, and I saw on your Instagram, you said too, you thought about just restarting it. Would that have been an option at that point?
I think so, just because I was going by myself. I wasn't like in a race with anybody. Like I could have been like, oh, that was just like a warm up. Here we go. Real thing starting now. I'm sure it would have been fine, but I've never done that before. So I just kept going. And yeah, like it forced me to just like, that panic that you get sometimes. It happened to me actually on a run. I wear a heart rate monitor a lot. And if something kind of triggers me, I'll like look down and see kind of if my heart rate spiked. Like I was on a run like a few weeks ago, and I thought I lost my keys in my car like during the run, and I felt like my heart rate start racing, and I looked down and it went from like 130 to like 165, like real quick, just off of like a panic, kind of like, oh my God. And that's kind of what happened to me during those lunges. Like I panicked because I knew that I didn't have seconds to lose, and I just kind of lost a few right here at the very start. And I kind of got that little shot of adrenaline. And I got on the rower and started pulling probably a little bit too hard in the beginning, just because I got that jolt of energy from the panic. And just from that point on, it was very difficult to control my heart rate. And yeah, it just kind of made for a less than ideal race, because I felt better doing it in Denver than I did at sea level at this place, just because I felt more in control of my effort. This time it was more of like a struggle from start to finish.
So you got up and then, like you said, you pulled really hard, probably too hard on the rower, and you did make up a lot of time really fast. So you went from kind of being a little behind, all of a sudden you were ahead, all the way ahead through each station, and you looked really good through them. But then you got to the tank. And this is another thing. There's 2 things about the tank. One, again, Beth and I discussed before, was we've never had the opportunity to do a Deka because we've been shut down since it started and couldn't get across the border, which has been a very big piss off for both of us. But from our understanding, the tank essentially goes the speed it's going to go. And your increased effort is not proportionately rewarded by speed. Is that generally the experience with it?
I would say so.
Yeah.
It's a very frustrating station because it'll move with very minimal effort. And like you said, it doesn't, if you work a little bit harder, it doesn't really feel like you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. But that being said, I did push it a few times before I started. I don't think it was on camera or anything, but I went over there and pushed it and pulled it. And I was moving that thing like it was just like one of those radio flyer wagons, But then I got in the race and it felt just exponentially harder. I don't know, man. I do think walking it back is not the way to do it. I think it's the way to maybe conserve some energy. But in terms of speed and trying to maximize seconds, I don't think that's the way to do it. I got to work on some things. I think if you can just take a couple steps backwards and then pull it in, take a couple steps, pull it in, that's going to be the fastest way to do it. But it's at that point in the race, you're usually already like so tired that it's easy to just settle into that, just dragging it back kind of technique. And it's just not very fast. Yeah, that's if I had to pick like one station to just take out and put something else in, I would probably pick that. Just because it doesn't really reward like more effort being put forward.
And of course, a couple, like it looked like that the straps got tangled up on you and you had to fidget with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we're talking, I mean, you ended up off by what, 4 seconds, give or take?
I missed the record. I missed tying the record by 5 seconds. I missed breaking it by 6.
So, I mean, between fiddling with the lunges and fiddling with the straps, really, there's your time.
There was, and I fumbled getting up onto the ski erg. When I first went up and tried to grab the handles, I missed on the right side. So that was probably about a second right there because I pulled it and my arm came off and then I had to reach back up and grab it. I almost tripped getting off the assault bike. So I think there was like four or five little things that were just like, you know, a half a second here, a second there, another second here, which, you know, comes out to, you know, right there at the record time, which again, I knew I didn't have. If I was going to beat the record, it was probably, I predicted an 11:46 is what I thought. So I got 3 seconds to lose. And then if I didn't get the record, I knew it was going to be within a few seconds. So I knew, just every second mattered. And those little tiny mistakes that really, you would be like, oh, that's not much, but I needed that. But, you know, sometimes records aren't meant to be broken at the time. And I'm meant to go back to work and put a little bit more training into it and try to execute it at another time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was still an awesome effort, and I believe you increased your PR by probably 13 seconds or something like that, something in that neck of the woods.
Yeah. And I try to think about that and keep that into perspective, like getting the personal best, being the fourth person under 12, beating Hunter, which is always fun. I love you, Hunter, if you're listening. He actually called me afterwards and told me, you know, good job. And, we talked for a while afterwards. But yeah, it's easy for that to kind of be overshadowed by the fact that I didn't get the record, just because that's what I went there to do. I went there to get the record. I didn't go there to break 12 or get a personal best. Like I went there for one thing and one thing only, and came up just a little bit short. But if I can take a step back and look bigger picture, it's like, okay, like you did improve. Fix a few things and you're right there.
So does this adjust your plan, or are you still going to do the same thing and go after that Deka mile wherever it is next month and the fit as well? Are you going to try to challenge Rich Ryan?
Dude. So I'm in a bit of a pickle right now because there's a lot of fun things coming up in the month of September. So just to kind of run it down, I've got the Deka mile here in Colorado on September the 11th, which is also the same weekend as Hyrox World Championship in Germany. The next weekend is Deka Fit, New Jersey, in New Jersey. The weekend after that is Hyrox Los Angeles. Right now, I would say number one on the priority is getting to Germany for Hyrox, but the whole COVID thing right now, it's a little bit complicated. If you like, I personally, I have not been vaccinated. So there's a quarantine process for traveling abroad right now to Germany. I think it's like 5 days you'd have to be up in like your hotel room. And I'm not going to go to Germany for 5 days and just sit in a hotel room and think that that's going to be the best way to maximize my race, you know? So there's a chance I might be getting vaccinated in like the coming weeks to just like make that whole process easier. So if I had to pick, it would be Hyrox. And if I'm not going to go to Hyrox, then I'll be here in Colorado for the Deka Mile. And then it becomes a little bit complicated because, like I said, Deka Fit's the weekend after that, and then Hyrox Los Angeles is the weekend after that. So, yeah, if you're looking to maximize your opportunity, it's not going to be racing 3 weekends in a row. So something's probably going to have to give. And if I end up not going to Germany, I'll probably do the Deka Mile, and then I'll skip Deka Fit, and then I'll do Hyrox, because that's been a big focus of mine, is Hyrox. And I put a lot of training into that one specific event, and I'm like ready to freaking test out like my training. And then Deka Fit, there probably won't be another Deka Fit in America this year. There was supposed to be one in Austin in November, but I think it's already been canceled from what I've been told from Yancey. But there will be plenty of opportunities to knock out another Deka Mile or a Deka Strong somewhere in like a Deka affiliate gym across the country. I think the same gym I just went to for the Deka Strong is doing a Deka Mile at the end of October. So yeah, that's kind of what the next couple of months are going to look like. It's going to be this just blend of probably Deka Fit and Hyrox. And like I said, hopefully I can get over to Germany, because that would be, I mean, I would like that $10,000 payday. That would be nice.
Well, I know. I've heard a lot of the athletes from North America are not going to be making it. Like from what I've seen, I don't think Hunter's going. From what he's put online, it doesn't seem like he's going. I know Dylan Scott does plan to make it, and he's been doing quite well lately. Along with Rachel Vonderak, she's planning to go as well. But other than that, I haven't heard a ton that are going over. So hopefully you do make it. I mean, it would, to give it that international flair. But that's
and like I would love to go, and I would love Hunter to go, because even he is a friend of mine. Like we have like, it's kind of the same with him and Magida. Like we're buds, but like when it's go time, it's go time. He's always kind of been that monkey on my back, and I would love the chance to try to beat him at his thing. So I wouldn't shy away from, a battle with Hunter. But if he doesn't show up, it's free money, man. Like that's how I see
Lucas
it.
Strauss isn't watching.
Like, who?
Lucas.
So I honestly, Lucas would be the one exception, I believe, because unless those guys, Magida, Dylan Scott, those guys have been putting in some major work. I just don't, and it's nothing against them. I mean, they're great athletes, but I don't see them necessarily being a factor, because I think Lucas and I are going to be in that 58 range probably. And I just don't see some of those other guys being able to do that. And they could prove me wrong. And that would be fantastic. But that'd be a big improvement in a short amount of time.
Yeah. I could see Magida hitting sub 60 on his next one. He had a very off race on the last one that he went to. That was a bit of a rough one for him, but I could see him hitting sub 60. I could see Dylan again. He's been on a steady improvement. I don't know if quite sub 60, but maybe a low 60s or a 61 this time. But yeah,
Magida would be tough. I will say that. And like you said, Dylan's been he's strong for his size, without a doubt.
He has the most bizarre training. I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but the guy's a great guy.
I heard something.
Man, it's crazy.
He does like a ton of volume, right?
Oh,
yeah, insane workouts.
Yeah, and Magida, that to me is he's fallen into the trap that I fell in when I first started Hyrox. It was like, okay, I came in and I ran 65, and then I came in and ran 60. Then I came in and ran 59. So I had like 3 consecutive improvements. And then I'm like, okay, like train harder, train harder, train harder. Next thing you know, I ran a 61, then another like 61 or 62. And he's kind of, and I hope he's changed it, but from what I know, he's still kind of doing the same thing where he's just doing these crazy hard, like Hyrox simulations. And I've done that before, and it just runs you into the ground. Like you can have success off of it in the short term, but eventually that kind of workload is going to break you down, and you're going to start seeing like diminishing returns. And that's, in my opinion, that's what I saw from Magida in the last like 1 or 2 races that he's done. He wanted it so bad that he was just training so hard, and got a worse result because of it. So hopefully, you know, he's kind of changed some things up, and because he definitely has the talent and the physique and the strength and all that kind of stuff to be really, really good at it.
Well, hopefully we get you guys all out there in one time. That would be awesome. I would love to see that.
And dude, what is up with Hyrox doing their U.S. championships in January? Have you seen that?
Is that when they're doing it now? January?
It's in January. First of all, it's like your world championships are in September, and then I don't know. The winter time's kind of an odd. Usually, that's like an off-season kind of deal, you know. Like, so it's kind of frustrating. You would think that after the world championships, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna take some time off. But it's like if the U.S. championships are in January, it's pretty much you got to keep training like right on through the winter. When here in Colorado, it's freaking cold, and I have to train super early in the morning, so it's going to be like pitch black. It's just going to be a miserable couple months if it's something like I choose to keep like pursuing into the next year. Like just move it to like April or May or something.
My guess is eventually you will see Hyrox kind of slowly switch their calendar. I think that their goal is to try to entice more CrossFitters. So what they would like to do is get their big events in the CrossFit off season, right? So that they can bring the CrossFitters will have time to go over. So I think that's what they're trying to go through. I'm just guessing, but I'm saying I think that's what they're trying to wrap their schedule around.
And I mean, that could be a whole nother discussion, but I just don't see that happening just because there's
January is also the big Dubai meet for CrossFit.
Yeah.
Which is a huge
I just don't
money
see many
maker.
CrossFitters coming in just simply from the 8 kilometers of running. Like there's a few anomalies, you know, you've got, you know, Lauren Weeks. I think maybe like somebody like a Christy Aramo could probably do pretty well, but most of those girls and guys are not going to want to go and run 5 miles. Like it's just not going to happen.
No, and that's why I've been a proponent of if you want to drag those people in, you need to do a half Hyrox, where the running is cut in half, keep the weights and the reps the same, but cut the running in half, and then you'll have a chance to drag them in. Otherwise, I totally agree with you. I don't know any CrossFitters that want to run that far.
No, like I worked out at a CrossFit gym before I moved into the house that I'm in now, and one of the guys that went there, he actually went to the games this year, and he wanted me to like program him some like running workouts and stuff to help him get better at running. And I was like, well, how much like are you running? You know, and it's like 3 miles a week or something like that. You know, like these guys are not putting in the time to really improve their running. I'm sure some of the real top end people, Tia Claire Toomey, Madero, some of those guys are putting in, you know, maybe 15 miles a week, maybe something like that. But that's still probably not enough to get you through a Hyrox and at least like get a good time out of it, you know.
So is a 57:30 in your future?
I think it's 100% possible. 100% possible. I've broken up the event into smaller portions in my training, into really small portions, maybe just like a run and then a station break, run, station, break. I've done it where I've done run, station, break. I've done a little bit more than that. And I've gotten to the point where, like, honestly, 6-minute mile pace out of something is feeling pretty comfortable up here at altitude. So I think it's 100% possible on the right day if everything's clicking. I think 57:30 is 100% doable.
Okay. So I got one last question for you. Let's say, for argument's sake, Hyrox, Deka, Spartan Stadium series, they're essentially all, let's call it, financially rewarding equal. Which one would you focus on?
Stadiums, man.
Awesome.
Because I think at my core, I'm more of just like a functional fitness and endurance athlete. Hyrox is like, I have to really switch up my training to maybe do some things I don't really want to do. Like I need to, squat a bunch, and I need to do some bench press, and it just requires a whole different type of training that I don't necessarily hate, but if I could pick something I enjoy the most, it would probably be training for a stadium, because I can still get out on the trails as long as they've got some good climbs on it, and then still do some functional fitness on the side too. So that'd probably be my number one, and then I don't know what would be second. Hyrox would be a tie for second.
Awesome. Well, that's all I got for Ryan. Bethany?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks so much, Ryan, for coming on and talking to us. All the best with the rest of your season. We're here cheering for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Good talking to you.